Hello, everybody. So, here is my response to Alan's thread of 1001 other albums you should hear before you kick the bucket, before your time on this earth has expired. Look, I poked a little fun with a community post, people that own this book or whatever. And I'm just kidding. There's nothing wrong with owning this book. I think the book is got actually a lot of albums that not everybody knows, that might point a young music fan into a certain direction of experimentation and stuff. There are a lot of albums in that book that I didn't discover really until like my 30s. There are albums in that book that I still haven't heard. Now, I'm trying to decide how I'm going to tackle this. I think the easy thing would be to grab 5 albums that you don't think anybody's ever heard. But let's be honest, if you pick some kind of like Swedish free jazz record, not everybody should hear that before they die. It's not for everybody. And I'm not saying that all the albums that I've chosen are for everybody either. But what I did choose was I tried to find albums that a few of these I'm kind of shocked aren't in the book. Everybody I'm going to show, people have heard these albums, or at least they're aware of the artist, if they haven't heard the album, itself. So that's how we're approaching it. I've kind of rambled on enough here. But I started with the 60s. I wasn't even going to do the 60s because that was going to be kind of tough. But I did think of somebody that I didn't see at all. And they weren't even, they didn't even have an album of theirs from the 70s in the book. And the album is Amen by the Staple Singers. I just feel like the Staple Singers need to be represented. The book does include international artists, and I think pretty much every genre, for the most part, is covered in some way. The main genres. I don't think I really saw like a gospel record on there. And what I did was I checked the website, and that would be the most current, up-to-date version, and I think it's like up to 2018. This is one of the most important American music acts, artists, in history, like in the world, not just in America. The Staple Singers were important to so many artists. I just feel like they are a must-hear. And this is a fantastic album. When was this one? 66 or something like that? 65 maybe? I don't know. But anyway, Amen by the Staple Singers. That's my first. That should be, one of the 8 million albums you should hear before you croak. Most people know this. They should know it if they don't, or you've at least heard of this artist. I chose Aeroplane by John Hartford. This record was a monumental shift in folk music and bluegrass. It was a monumental shift in his career. Most of the work that he had put out up to this point was fairly straightforward singer-songwriter stuff. And this, he just kind of said, fuck it. And it is way out there, and it's got an incredible band. And I think even if you're not really into bluegrass, this album is definitely worth checking out just for the more insane kind of out there moments on it. An all-time classic, Aeroplane by John Hartford. Here's another one that I've got to say I was kind of surprised wasn't on the list. Crazy Rhythms by the Feelies. This is an all-time classic. Anybody that's into indie rock, kind of art rock leaning, post-punk even, stuff on the quirkier side. If you're even like a kind of a jangle power pop fan, even though there's not real power pop, I would say, on this, especially due to the vocals. There's an element of jangle that's kind of mixed into this arty post-punk. I was kind of shocked that this wasn't in the 1980 section. So the 90s, there were a lot of different directions that I could have gone. The Roots were a band that I thought should be on there. And I started in the 90s, couldn't find any of their 90s albums. So I was like, well, they must not be. And then I found Phrenology was on there from 2002, which, you know, it's a good album, but the 90s stuff, I've been listening to this as this got a recent repress. Yeah, this Seafield album is I kind of think a must hear, but that wasn't the one I had chosen. What I did choose was something a little bit more straightforward, but still all the while very important album in my opinion, from the late 90s, Young Team by Mogwai. Abrasive, loud, in your face, post-rock, mostly instrumental post-rock, very raw sounding, not huge arrangements with like orchestral elements like a band like Godspeed. Just more kind of straightforward, straight ahead, bare bones, but yet epic sounding music. Young Team, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big one for me personally, but also I think for a lot of other people like my age. And yeah, there wasn't a Mogwai album anywhere from any of the other years. And then the last one I'm just calling an album from the 21st century. So anything from 2000 up until now. And it's Strange Mercy by St. Vincent. I just feel like Annie Clark. I know she's critically lauded. I know that a lot of people know about her and in the vinyl community talk about her and show her albums when they're talking about new music. What I hear in Annie Clark and St. Vincent, I don't think a lot of other people necessarily hear. And to me, she is like another link in the chain of a lineage of popular music auteurs like David Bowie, Prince, Kate Bush, David Byrne. We're talking about real shapeshifters, these artists. And I think that Annie Clark is one of those. I think she's a real shapeshifter, an incredible musician as well. The guitar work on this album is out of this world. The different types of sounds that she creates with the guitar, the way she uses it as almost a tool, and not even, for flashy, what the guitar is usually used for, ripping riffs or anything, And then of course she's a great songwriter and an incredible vocalist, and Strange Mercy is, I think, her best record. And so I think it's an album that everybody should hear before they die, before they're buried or burned to ash or whatever. I also want to mention that my favorite two rock bands, my personal favorite two rock bands, nowhere to be found. Not a single Uncle Tupelo album in the book, not a single Spoon album in the book. I can live with Spoon. Kind of shocked Uncle Tupelo isn't in there, but of course they have Wilco, so I don't know. It is what it is. All right, Alan, feel free to take your shots at me. Anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Okay, bye.
Digital gramophone makes no sense.